Here's a question that might change your life if you really take it seriously. What I foretold you, that there are only 2 out of 100 people who truly reach their full potential. Now, that's not some motivational quote. That's what Abraham Maslow, one of the most respected psychologists in history, believed. He called it the 2% club. And ever since I read that in college, it stayed with me like a tattoo in my brain. Today, on this ride, I want to take you through why 98% of people never make it to that 2%, and how you and I can avoid these traps. Now, this isn't about motivation, this is about awareness, because once you see the trap, you can walk around it and avoid it. Now, let's begin with the basics. So, what's Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a 5-tier pyramid that explains what motivates human behavior. Very interesting concept, so stay with me. At the bottom of the pyramid, psychological needs are the most important, which is food, water, and sleep. If you don't get this, obviously you can't go to the next step. The next is safety needs, job security, health, and protection. And after that comes love, belonging, friendship, family, and relationships. But then by the next step called self-esteem, which is to talk about achievements, status, recognitions, etc. And finally at the top is self-actualization, which is basically reaching your full potential. Now here is the most people, that includes, which is about 90% of us, don't even get past esteem because we are busy chasing titles, promotions, likes on Instagram, thinking this is what success feels like, but the real gold is in that tiny triangle at the top. Self-actualization isn't about being the best in the world. It's about being the best version of yourself. The game is not a zero sum. There are no losers, there are no winners. This is about you competing with yourself and you trying to become the best version of yourself, which basically means you're not necessarily stepping on other shoulders and trying to get where you want to get. So, if we all can reach it, then why don't we? Why do most people stall halfway up the pyramid at the top? The answer lies in traps. I'm not talking about physical traps, they are psychological traps. Mindsets and habits that feel normal, but slowly they block our progress. They're sneaky, they disguise themselves as productivity, discipline, or self-care. But once you can spot them, you'll be amazed as to how fast you can start moving forward again. So let's break down the 5 major traps that hold us back from joining the 2% club. And as I speak about these traps, I am going to reflect from my corporate experience of 2.5 decades with real-life examples of how I tried to avoid these traps. Now, I'm not saying that I've reached self-actualization, but I'm putting my effort, I'm putting my best foot forward because I want to get there. I'm trying my best. So what are these traps? I think the first most important trap that comes into my mind, lack of intentionality. Sounds very simple, but imagine I'm riding this motorcycle and I'm just riding without having an intention of where I want to reach. That's lack of intention. And it's amazing to see how few people actually stop and think about where they are going and how they're going to get there. But if you don't make a plan for yourself, you're going to the shooting range in a blindfold. Now, I'll give you an example. I had a clear intention to become a good public speaker because that's what is required to be a great leader, is what I feel. So I took action. That was my intention. The action I took was I joined something called the Toastmasters Club. Now this, I'm sure a lot of you may be aware of Toastmasters Club. Now this club organizes events where you're given topics to speak on the stage spontaneously, of course, with some amount of prep time, and then real-time feedback is provided to you on what you can improve and what you could do better. So I joined Toastmasters Club is because this is actually practicals, right? You're actually demonstrating your skill on the stage in front of an audience, thereby trying to remove the fear of public speaking. Intentionality is just not a wish. It's intention plus action. So the first trap you need to avoid is lack of intentionality. Get an intention. Second trap, perfection. During our journey, we must focus on progress, not perfection. There's a Japanese proverb that says, fall down 7 times but stand up 8. You will naturally make a lot of mistakes along the way, no two ways, to err is human. People underestimate the power of taking small imperfect actions regularly. Become an optimist rather than a perfectionist. Perfectionists live in a world where everything must be just right. Optimists share the same high standards, but they also embrace reality. They focus on progress, not perfection, knowing that all the marginal gains compound over time. Get a little better every day when things go wrong. Remember that stress builds strength. Now, I want to give you an example of, how I kind of fell into this trap is when I wanted to start a motovlogging channel, the one that I'm doing right now, my initial thing was I need to be perfect. I need to have the right helmet. I need to have the right GoPro setup. I need to have the right mic, etc., etc. But when I read about, that progress is better than perfection, I realized if I held to it, I strapped a GoPro on my helmet. I put a basic mic inside. I hit the record button and I just started riding on the highway like this. And I just started rattling things. Then I go back home and I edit. I look at it. I learn from it. I realize my mistakes. That's what I'm saying. When you actually make progress, you will be able to find those tiny improvements that you want to do, and it's those marginal improvements that have a compounding effect which eventually makes you brilliant at what you're doing. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please focus on progress, not perfection. Now, this could be in your corporate life, it could be in your personal life, doesn't really matter. Okay, let's go to trap number 3 now. So trap number 3 is too much structure. Anticipating that our days will go exactly as planned is completely unrealistic. As John Lennon once famously said, life is what happens when you are busy making other plans. Seriously. And it's so true. Build some buffer in your day for unplanned activities so you don't get derailed if things don't go as you had actually planned. I'll give an example. I was hosting a corporate sustainability event at the office that had some really serious leads from overseas and India. And our chief guest was delayed by about 20 minutes. While the entire auditorium was full, my boss came up to me and actually announced it on the mic. Hey Anil, our chief guest is delayed today. So why don't you engage all of us for the next 20 minutes? And my heart skipped a beat. I was in deep shock as the structure I had was so tight that it revolved around strict agenda and a script, which means I need to think on my feet now. And I've got to keep everyone engaged. So I took some deep breaths and talk about it in a minute. So I started with a bit of humor. And I said, this delay was not factored in my agenda. I guess my boss wants to test my public speaking skills. So please do bear with me. And I'm a bit nervous. And I said this so that it kind of calms me and also creates a sense of, ease in everybody out there. They feel a bit relaxed, they smile, and I can see the audiences having a laugh. It actually has an impact on what I'm going to talk because I start relaxing myself. But the fact is, I had a very strict agenda. Life happens to you when you're actually planning something else. And this is what happened. I was planning for the script, the agenda, and then this curveball or this googly came my way. Now, because I was a sustainability leader, I have had a lot of information and content on sustainability. So I started speaking about it, about what is sustainability, what is triple bottom line, what are we doing as an organization, the projects that we're driving, what is the impact of the projects in the community and the people that we live in. And I kind of went on for the next 15 minutes until the chief guest arrived. And I breathed deeply and I said, my savior is here. And I also looked at my boss and said, hey, this year I must be rated the top performer during my appraisal cycle. So all I'm saying is when you're too structured, then you're not leaving any room for flexibility or to wiggle. Please be prepared for the unexpected. I was lucky that I had content, but this taught me a lesson that every time I get on the stage, whatever it could be, I'm giving an example of this, every time I get on a stage, I have buffer content in hand or an activity that I can engage the audience. Now, trap 4. The next trap is called procrastination. I'm sure all of you are aware of it. This is a trap that is very, very familiar to all of us. There are 4 key ways to beat procrastination. The first one is called positive talk. It sounds very cliched, but here it is. We need to change from the language of oppression, negative self-talk, to the language of choice and positive self-talk. When I felt the urge to procrastinate, I would swap the I have to voice in my head with I choose to. You may not want to do a particular task, but you can always still choose to do it. This choice creates urgency, helping you feel in control. Since you're not being forced to do something, you're less likely to employ procrastination as a self-defense tactic. The second thing to avoid procrastination is focus on starting. We also unknowingly trigger procrastination by focusing on finishing rather than starting. So if you were to continue the I have to sentence in your mind, on your head, it's often followed by the word finish. As in, I have to finish writing this report or whatever it may be. Instead, we all need to say the following to us. I choose to start for just 5 minutes. Now, do I actually stop working on a task after just 5 minutes? Honestly, very rarely. If you can just get yourself to start, often you'll get absorbed in what you're doing and you keep going. I call it getting lost in the deep. As the saying goes, the hardest part about running is putting on your shoes. So true, right? Third, centering. I was saying a while ago, I'm going to talk about this. So before starting a period of quality, distraction-free work, we need to complete a sequence of deep breaths. Goes like this. First, take 3 breaths to relax, then take 3 breaths to let go of the past, and another 3 to let go of the future. And lastly, take 3 breaths to remind yourself how easy it is to take a vacation in the present. You don't need to be anywhere or do anything other than what you're doing in the moment. Now, gently open your eyes to the task that's at hand and choose to start for just 5 minutes, and trust me, you will continue progress. Fourth, guilt-free play. Scheduling your free time helps fight procrastination because it gives you something to look forward to. I'm much more likely to buckle down and get things done when I know I only have a few precious hours to work with. I also like knowing that afterwards I get to do something fun, like hanging out with the family or with my friends or going on a bike ride like this or whatever it is. The last most common and perhaps the most insidious trap is about hyper-focusing on only one domain of life. Health, work, and relationships, these are the ones that represent the 3-legged stool that provide stability and meaning to our lives. Adding or strengthening a leg creates improvement in others as well. So if you begin working out, you will have more energy at work and better attitude when you get back home. You will have more clarity and also be better equipped to handle stress. When you take a moment to stop and play with your kids or go on a date night with your spouse, I'm willing to bet you will find more meaning and ambition in your career as well. Positive changes in one area creates positive changes in another. Now, here are 3 types of people who really hyper-focus on one domain and they just get stuck and lost out there and they create so much of imbalance in their life. The first is a workaholic. Now, this person is ambitious and usually rewarded for their intense effort and, hard bike, disciplined work ethic. But their health and relationships suffer because of hyper-focus just on work. The second is the martyr. The martyr hovers over family and friends at the expense of nearly everything else. Now, this one might be harder to spot because it seems noble to self-sacrifice. Maybe they are a homemaker, happily focusing all their energy and efforts on their kids or family, yet still longing to express themselves or shine in some other way. Now, if you find yourself relating to any of this, if your health and work feel unhealthy, compromised by your relationship, you might be a martyr. The third is a health nut. Now, the name suggests as it is, the health nut prioritizes health and fitness over everything else. They work out all the time and obsess over what they eat, when they eat, how much they eat. They measure everything. So those are 3 categories of people who are hyper-focused. Where do you fall? In which categories do you fall in? Now, I spoke about 3 domains of life. We must seek to integrate all the aspects of our life if we want to have a meaningful and fulfilling existence. They often confuse surviving and thriving. Now, this raises a very, very important question that wouldn't you thrive if you got more sleep? Wouldn't you thrive if you were happier in your personal life? Now, don't settle for the status quo just because it seems to be working. If you don't have time for things, that you enjoy, then honestly, you're not thriving. If you're not spending time with the loved ones, I don't think you're thriving. If you fill your body with junk food because you don't have enough time or energy basically to care about your health, then you're not thriving. And all of this will catch up with you eventually. The concept is all about whole life integration, and I believe peak performance and reaching your potential are about whole life integration. There are three domains in life that are equally important and affect each of us every day. The three domains are our health, our wealth or just work, and our relationships. Neglect one and you'll hurt the others. Most CEOs or entrepreneurs and leaders, they don't want to be, just high performing leaders. They actually also want to be fit and great spouses and parents. Now, we intuitively understand the importance of taking a holistic view and how these areas are intimately connected. In sports, for example, you don't achieve peak performance, just by looking at what you do on the field. You also have to look at what are you doing off the field. You want to become a better leader? Start by becoming a better parent or by waking up early to work out. Understand, we aren't one-dimensional beings. We are multi-dimensional, and we want life that fulfills us in many different ways. There's a very good author called Eric, Partaker, who wrote the book called 3 Alarms. He advises, and such an interesting thing, he advises setting 3 alarms on your phone to trigger you. One to remind you to be healthy. The second one is to remind you to be wealthy, which is about your work. And the third one that reminds you to be great husband and dad. Now, I give it a shot. To this day, I still have those 3 simple alarms going off every single day. So, let us recap the actions that we want to take to ensure that we become the best versions of ourselves, which will propel us to get into self-actualization. So the first one, which peak performance traps you identify the most? Lack of intentionality, or is it perfectionism, too much structure, procrastination, or hyper-focusing on a single demon? Check out which of these traps you're in. Second, do you struggle with procrastination? If so, which of the 4 strategies can you incorporate in your life to tackle it? Which is positive self-talk, focusing on starting, centering, and guilt-free play. Third, are you a workaholic, a martyr, or a health nut? How do you think this has impacted the 3 domains of your life? Give it some thought. All right, this ride is wrapping up, but our journey isn't over. In part 2, I will share the 3 keys to peak performance, which will allow you to go deeper and ensure that you could be the person who joins the 2% club. Until then, ride safe, reflect deeply, and don't just settle for surviving. Let's aim to thrive. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm going to bring this vlog to a close. Please do take good care of yourselves and, if possible, a few others. And on that note, bye for now.